What's up? I'm Nina. This is the Panic Button. Today we're reacting to something a little different, which is the debate of abortion on the Whatever podcast with Destiny.
Experiences or stress that the child may be going through, or the genetic conditions that a child may have. But that's not an equivalent for saying, well, we don't know when human life begins, when we know it actually begins, and we've already proven as a scientific fact begins at the moment of conception. Therefore, we can kill a human being.
Okay. So all I'm trying to illustrate to you is that you believe in...
No. Yes, okay. Lila, go ahead.
We'll have you come in.
We'll have you come in. Go ahead, Lila. Go ahead.
So I would just say, yes, there...
Life begins at conception. Like a human life? Or is it just a cluster of cells? It's not... okay, keep going.
There is a sliding time frame from when someone might undergo puberty. But if you are basing a decision about whether or not you can kill an innocent prepubescent or pubescent child, then I would say your standard of puberty shouldn't matter. Yeah. Similarly to your standard, your unjust standard of consciousness to demand that a baby that's not fully developed yet has to be developed in order to be protected. And I think that's age discrimination.
Gotcha. Okay. So all I'm trying to point out is...
How is that age discrimination? We don't count the baby's age until it flows through the mother's birth canal and is brought into the real world. So if we don't count the child's age until then how is it like a human being? How is it considered a human being? Wouldn't it be considered a partially formed, could possibly be human?
Do you agree you are age discriminatory, by the way? Do you agree?
I am age. Do you think, are you age discriminatory?
So you're...
And also, yeah, what I was going to say, the age discriminatory thing, it doesn't make any sense. Because how can you be age discriminatory against a fetus that doesn't have an age? Because it's still developing. So what are you age discriminating against? What's the age you're discriminating against?
Age discriminatory about when human beings should have the right to live.
I'm discriminatory about a lot of different things.
So you believe that you are age discriminatory about
I'm developmentally discriminatory.
Typically, developmental discrimination is for the protection of the less developed person. It's not for the manipulation.
For the protection of a mother that doesn't want to have a pregnancy too. There is another person in the equation here, you know.
Manipulation and the harm of the
manipulation or harm of the mother who's being forced to be a breeding factory for a child.
Do you know what
I can morally loathe this just the other way if you want. If you want to play that game, I can do that.
I think your argument actually isn't consciousness. I think you are making a bodily autonomy argument.
What? No, I'm not. That's the dumbest argument in the world.
You absolutely are, because you said the mother has a pregnancy. No, the mother...
No, I'm just trying to show you that if you want to morally loathe things like murder of a child, well, then I'm going to say, well, forcing a...
I think that maybe women might be a little bit more apt to keep the child. I mean, bear with me here. This is kind of ridiculous, but I think they may be more apt to not want to have an abortion if we knew without a shadow of a doubt that the person did rape her against her will, was put to death.
Well, you didn't agree with me about my analogy about artificial wombs.
I didn't agree. I rejected it because I said it was dumb because viability has no impact whatsoever on my feelings on whether or not a fetus is endowed with rights for human life or not.
Kristen is correct in that you are sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth a little bit here.
Absolutely not. Right now I'm struggling to talk out of one side of my mouth.
On the one hand, Destiny, you're saying that it shouldn't matter whether or not the mother wants the baby or doesn't want the baby if the baby is conscious. And on the other hand, you're saying actually the mother's desire to have or not have that baby, being forced to birth that baby, actually does matter. So that's a little bit of a contradiction.
So it's not a contradiction at all. Whether or not somebody wants to have a child or not is not the same as when does the child get moral protections. Those are two fundamentally separate questions.
You're saying you
However,
should not be,
I might want
forced to give birth. You are using that language.
No, well, because you're using the language of like killing a child.
No, you're ending the life of an innocent human being that is a child.
Thank you for illustrating my point. Yes, yes.
So if you're going to... It's not a human being yet, though. We don't count it as a human being yet. We don't count the age of it until it's a fully formed human being out of the birth canal. Instead of saying it's a not fully formed human being, they're saying it's a human being. And it can't be a human being if it's only half there. It's not conscious.
Why are you so offended by the word child?
I'm not offended because when you say child, it's not that it's triggering me.
That's gaslighting right there, what she just did. Why are you so offended? It's triggering you. I've been watching him, and he hasn't seemed triggered. Might seem slightly frustrated, but making it humorous, the fact that he can't really get a word in. But they're doing this gaslighting thing, which a lot of people do, where, especially if you're having an argument, like they're having a debate, but if you're having an argument, a lot of people will do this in order to feel like they have the upper hand. I see a lot of women do that, though, where they'll see that they're losing the debate, and instead of coming back with a fair argument, they come back with a personal dig, like, ooh, you're getting offended. Ooh, you're so weak. Ooh, why aren't you acting like an adult in this situation instead of acting like you're so upset and triggered? Like, he's obviously not, but they're projecting that onto him. It's not working, but it's such a bitchy tactic to use. I hate that. I mean, the one comes off kind of like a cunt, so I think you guys know which one I'm talking about, by the way.
It's absolutely triggering you because you've said it like 6 times.
Because you're begging the question.
Are you triggered, Destiny? Confirm or deny. Are you triggered?
Okay. So
I actually, you know what?
Yeah,
I have.
the problem is that right now, the point of our debate, it's kind of like going to a self-defense trial and having the people that you killed being called victims.
Well, hold on,
right?
hold on. You're the one who's advocating for the positive right to kill a child in the womb.
Okay.
You're the one advocating for that.
Okay.
We're advocating to say you can't kill a child. So, you know,
I'm just trying to explain why calling it a child is begging the question.
But why does that bother you?
I'd actually like to understand.
It bothers me because the subject of the debate is whether or not it is a child. So if you call it a child, you're already presupposing the most difficult part of the conversation, which is begging the question.
But I think that's a contradiction too, Destiny, because
it's not bothering him. He's trying to be specific with the argument and keep the parameters in place. And she's just like, oh, you don't like something I said? Ooh, it's bothering you. Like she's doing these little bitchy digs that a lot of cunty women do. Oh, I can't imagine who is married to this woman. Holy oh, I would just.
It is because you just said you said that you become a person.
You know what it's like? It's like arguing with a middle schooler.
Mm-hmm. At consciousness, this arbitrary line that you've drawn that's not even clear.
Yeah.
And
no, it's very clear.
But you never
Who
were
hasn't
upset.
named
you
any
never talked about
biologist,
when
by the way,
childhood begins. So let's actually talk about that.
When is a what?
Does childhood begin at a different time than when personhood begins?
Childhood is whatever you want. Some childhood begins when you see your first Sesame Street episode. I don't know. What does childhood mean?
Okay, when does a child become a child? When is it okay to call a preborn life a child in your
I don't
view?
know. That's a semantic question I'm not really interested in.
So why are you upset about us using
a preborn life a child? It wouldn't be a child until it was born. Until then, it's still like a fetus.
using the word if you don't really have an
Because we're not
opinion
just
on it?
having semantic disagreements. We're having like very discrete.
Why do they keep projecting these emotions that he's not showing at all onto him? They're trying to get him pissed off or defensive in order to win the debate. And it makes them look bitchy, naggy, like old maid hags, because they're using these mean girl tactics in their debate. And it comes off very
disagreements on morality over when somebody should be.
Then? When do you
My
think
disagreement
the life
is I don't
becomes a
think that
child?
it becomes a person at
But
conception
you
that's
just said
endowed
you
with
don't
human
like
rights.
us using the word child. When does the life become
you know,
a child?
because now you just asked me about childhood and now you're asking child. The reason why we're arguing over
when you start having your childhood, when you start becoming a child.
Let me know when I
is
can
that?
fully answer the question, okay?
Please tell me.
Okay. We're having a conversation right now about when something is endowed with like moral consideration. When
I'm
is
asking
something
she keeps interrupting. Oh my God. Shut up. Shut up.
It's a pretty simple question, actually.
Are you a liar?
I'm just asking.
I asked you to, if I could finish it, you said I could, and now you cut me off.
Let's let
you
Destiny
lied to me.
finish
Okay,
the,
let me finish the question.
for it.
Don't
Go
lie,
for it.
because you'll lose moral consideration. Okay. All right. No. If the subject of the debate is when does a fetus become a person? Okay. Child is another word for person. So when you say,
Okay, that's
do
what
you?
I'm-
She did it again. She did it again. God damn it.
think it's
Hold on,
okay when you say,
please let
do you think
Destiny
it's
finish.
okay to kill a child? Obviously, the answer is no. I don't think it's okay to kill a child. But that's not the
What do you
conversation
call
we're
it
having. The
before
conversation we're having
Please,
is
just let them
when is
finish.
something considered a child? So that's why I'm obviously going to push when you say, you're saying we should kill children
What do you
at
call
2
it?
weeks old. I don't know, a fetus, whatever you want to call it.
But do you know what the Latin word fetus means?
I don't care. I'm not Latin.
That's not going to win the argument. Well, do you know what the Latin word for fetus means? What the fuck does that matter in the debate? I don't give a shit. What does it mean in French? I don't fucking know.
It means young one. It's another word for child.
That's great. There are young ones that are puppies. That doesn't
a human
have any
child.
bearing
Oh,
on me.
that's
You're not
actually-
going to
that's a very
etymologically
interesting
win the
question
debate
for you.
against me.
So just
do you
to
think
clarify,
puppies get consciousness at a certain point?
Not human
just to
consciousness,
clarify,
no.
we're only allowed to call
That would be an
a
interesting
human
question.
life a child at Destiny's arbitrary line of consciousness. Is
What
that
I'm
correct?
saying is that
Because you're very offended when we use this term, so I'm trying to understand when it is.
Where's the offense? I see no offense. He's not offended. I've seen people offended before that's not offended. What is wrong with these bitches? It's that they're seeing shit that's not happening. Oh my God. These guys are in psychosis too. The shit that they bitch about, they do as well. Right now, they're in psychosis. They're seeing shit that is not happening. My word, if these women are married, which I'm sure they are, they definitely wear the pants and they definitely win every argument. I feel terrible for their husbands. I bet they're just complete cucks.
In your book, correct to use
if
it.
anybody is triggered in this room, it is not me. Okay.
That's good.
So it's funny that you keep using the offended line. I'm used
Okay,
to the you mad
you
bros.
disagree strongly.
No, I don't disagree. You're just
You
like
don't disagree.
presupposing the argument. That's the
It's
issue.
pissing you off when we use the word child.
Jesus Christmas in heaven. The shiitake is off the charts. It's off the charts, man. They're just, are they trying to be funny or is this serious? Because I can't tell. I can't tell. They're not even trying to argue anymore. They're like, "Ugh. Are you like this, Destiny? Are you mad, Destiny? Are you offended, Destiny?
Is what we're saying.
Confirm or deny. Are you
Confirm or
pissed
deny.
off, Destiny?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
He
You know what?
doesn't
I
like
actually.
Can I? Wait, no, hold on. It's the same thing as
oh,
you guys, because I know you guys, and I guess maybe this is just like in your brain, it's how you approach conversations, but I know you guys get frustrated when people argue with you, and you're like, you just want to take rights away from the mom. If I wanted to engage in the same style of conversation you're engaging in, I would just say that over and over again. Why do you want to make moms baby factories?
I
Why
would
do you want to
ask
make
them
moms
to-
slaves? You know what is really problematic is when we take away rights from certain groups of people and we force them to do things with their bodies that they don't want to. A lot of eugenics was done that way. A lot of the Nazi concentration camps was done that way. If you're going to make the argument that like, oh, well, viewing people as people sometimes and not as really problematic, then I'll say, okay, well, restricting rights from people, especially women, has also been really problematic historically.
So-
Welcome to women's suffrage. Welcome to women being able to own property. Welcome to women having access to
Welcome to women not having sports anymore because the men who think they're women came in and said, hey, ladies, I'm a woman too.
birth control.
Thank you
Welcome
for
to women
explaining
being able to
women's
do-
rights to
No
us.
problem. I'll do it since you guys have the problem with the
So- yeah,
understanding.
thank you.
But I'm saying I'm not doing that because that's boring to me because obviously if you guys thought that a fetus
Oh, also, I know that the Democrats right now are going to be running on the abortion rights for women. It's going to fail immensely because how are they going to defend women's rights if they don't even know what a woman is because they're not biologists? Dead in the water.
wasn't a human life, then you would obviously agree with me. And if I agree that a fetus was a human life, I would obviously agree with you. So when
wait.
you
You
use
don't believe
normatively
in fetus?
Let him
loaded terms,
finish. Let
This
him
is an
finish.
important point.
when you use normatively loaded terms like murder a child or commit homicide, then all you're doing is you're begging the
You
question
don't know,
because
they're not-
obviously
Okay.
nobody at this table and nobody in this room believes in killing children or committing homicide
Okay.
against children.
Except
the
that you're-
question
I have
is,
a question for
when does it
Destiny.
become a child? That's
I
the
have a
question.
question for you, though,
I-
because you just said when a fetus becomes a human being. When does the fetus become a human being, Destiny?
The personhood comes when the conscious experience starts, which is
Okay.
about
But
20 to 24 weeks. Yep.
wait. Biology says moment of conception, life begins.
Biology does not tell you-
No,
hold on, wait,
stop,
I'm not-
stop. Excuse me.
Biology does
Excuse
not
me.
tell
I'm
you when
just gonna
human
start talking to you
rights-
like I talk to my 4 boys. Excuse me.
She means like she talks to her husband.
Life comes into
Hold on,
existence at the
Kristen,
moment
Kristen,
it's
Kristen,
There's
one
no way to
sec,
do it.
Kristen,
Go
one
ahead.
sec, one sec.
Yeah.
If
And by the way, ooh, she got 4 boys. Let's see how those ones turn out. They're going to have some mommy issues. Big time.
I would like everybody here at the table to have an opportunity to speak. So if we can try to limit the interruptions. Go ahead, Kristen.
fetus. When does the fetus become a human being? Because biology says, biologists confirm, 96% confirm, that the moment of conception you became a human being. You became a member of our species. But
No, you can't be because you're not fully developed yet. Does it even have a brain yet? It's a thing. It has the possibility of being something that's living, but it's not there yet. It's in the process. It's not an actual individual. If you remove it from the womb, it's going to die. Hello.
you kept saying the word, it's not a human being. So when does the child or entity or whatever term you want to use, it doesn't trigger you in the womb, become a human being?
20 to 24 weeks.
So you're actually, wait a minute. This is very important because you didn't say this at the beginning of the debate. The beginning of the debate, you were making a moral argument, but you weren't saying that it wasn't a human being.
You just changed his position from person to human being.
You are using an argument saying that it's consciousness, that consciousness gives that human being these special personhood rights not to be killed. But I made the argument a while back that you aren't really making that argument, because when I presented a couple other scenarios to you, you wouldn't agree with me. But the argument, what you just said—
What was a scenario where I didn't agree?
The argument you just said was it wasn't a human being. You just said, for everybody here, that it becomes a human being at 20, 24 weeks.
Okay.
That is scientifically unsound, because what we've already proven to you is that the moment of conception, a unique human being comes into existence. Do you agree with me that a human being is present in a mother's womb at the moment of conception?
No, it's a thing still.
If you want to define human being as unique genetic code that appears, then we can call that a human being. But the conversation that we're having right now is not about what a human being is. The conversation we're having is, when does something get granted rights or moral consideration?
So I think you need to be careful with your terms then. Because you kept saying
you're the one that's
being.
mixing everything up. I've been pretty clear, and I'll continue to be clear, because you're trying to ask me, yes or no, when does it become a human being? And if you're defining human being as the thing that gets rights, then I'll say it 20 to 24 weeks. The thing that I've said over and over again, and if you want, I write this word down. What I am talking about, and I've used this term before, is person or personhood.
Right.
And I think that a person is not a collection of cells. A person is not some body parts. A person is not something that responds to pain or heart pumping blood. When we think of people or persons, we think of people that are having subjective conscious experiences like we have now.
So I have a
when
question.
we think of when somebody
experiences?
dies, we think of that subjective conscious experience ending. That's why earlier the question that I asked, that I will never get an answer to, and I understand why you won't answer it. I asked you, if a person is going to be in a coma for the rest of their life, will never wake up, can you kill them? The answer is obviously yes, but the reason why you won't say that that's okay is because a comatose person possesses every single thing that the pre-conscious fetus has.
Let me answer the question.
So if you can kill that comatose person, you can probably kill the pre-conscious fetus.
Not. I think it would be wrong to take sofa clamp and dismember that person
100%.
limb from limb who's in a coma. But we would never say you actively kill.
If you're removing a not fully formed fetus from a mother's womb, can you feed it and give it water and it will sustain life? How do you even feed the fetus if you remove it at the moment of conception? How do you make it fully form without the mother? If you remove an almost complete baby from the mother's womb, at starting from 6 months, and if you can feed it and give it water and it can still form fully out of the mother's womb, then I would consider it a human being. But if it needs to be inside the mother and it's using the mother to form and grow, then it's not a human being yet. That's where I stand on that.
Kill a person who's in a coma. What Lila said, what
I agree with
said,
that. I agree.
Is you can actually remove care. You can remove the
I've already
breathing
demonstrated
apparatus.
that you don't
to
agree with
see
this
if
argument.
The person,
this is not an argument that you agree with. What you're doing is you're pointing out a difference. So sometimes in moral philosophy, people want to point to the difference between doing and allowing harm. And there might be a fundamental moral difference between doing harm to somebody versus allowing harm to somebody.
It depends what you mean by those actions.
Sure. You're trying to draw some difference here between doing and allowing harm. However, none of us here believe that that matters in this case, right? Because if you look at a child, none of us here would say that one is morally okay to allow harm versus one is morally okay to do harm.
Definitely.
For instance, if you had a child that was connected to an insulin tube or a feeding pump because they had issues with digestion or feeding, you wouldn't say that, like, okay, actively killing the child is wrong, but if you just disconnected their insulin pump, that would be okay because you're passively killing the child. We would say no, they have a fundamental right to survive and be alive, and you would say the same thing to a person connected to a machine, because if a person was in a coma or not in a coma, let's say they were just unconscious, okay, and we knew they were going to wake up in 2 weeks, or there was a high likelihood of it, we would say it's probably unethical to unattach that person to the machine, even if all they did was sit there and starve to death.
But if everyone has a right to life as well, then why is it that some people who are very sick and dying can't afford medications or such or treatments that would save their life? Isn't that what's happening in Canada? There are people who can't afford treatments, so they sign up to get unalived by the country of Canada. If these fetuses have a right to life, then everybody technically does. So we should be paying for everyone's health care. So in case they run into a health emergency and they can't afford it, that the state or the country will pay for it. But they don't. So then why should these fetuses have a right to life? There's a lot of things going on here.
Sit there and starve to death. So this weird description that you're trying to, or this weird dichotomy you're trying to make between doing versus allowing harm doesn't apply here when we talk about moral consideration.
What do you think about the distinction of I have the potential, I have the capacity for consciousness, I only need time for that to be realized. Similar, I'm under an anesthetic, I can have the capacity for consciousness. It's not realized because I'm under anesthetic. In both cases, it's still wrong to kill.
There's a difference. You're not developing the consciousness.
Why does that difference matter, Destiny?
Because there's a difference between a thing and a thing.
There's a difference, but why does the difference
let him
matter?
finish. Let him finish.
I am getting triggered. You're right. I'm getting triggered. Okay,
I know.
hold on.
We all know Destiny.
The cuttiness is just oozing out of this room. Oh, the one on the left, the heavy-set lady. She's something else.
She knows her argument is bad, and that's why she won't let me finish her report. So it's triggering the fuck out of me, okay? The key money question that I'm going to ask is if you have a person connected at end-of-life care, when does it become ethical to disconnect them?
You didn't answer. I'll answer that.
Lila's question.
But why does your difference matter?
You're not even going to let me finish, but I'll tell you the difference. The difference is there's a difference between a thing and a thing that something will become. Those are two fundamentally different things. So when you say, what's the difference between a fetus that hasn't developed the parts to have consciousness yet versus what's the difference between me?
The fetus.
He's trying to answer. Shut up. Shut up. Oh my God. Maddening. Maddening. This woman is maddening.
She wouldn't let me finish. The difference is you're not developing the capacity to have consciousness. There's a continuation of a prior conscious experience. All the parts are there to create a conscious experience. They're just temporarily alleviated. They're just no, it's not, because the fetus has never been conscious and doesn't have the parts to deploy the conscious experience. So there's fundamentally a difference. Was that 2 or 3 interruptions that I said were going to happen, right? There's fundamentally a difference between a thing doesn't even have the capability to have a conscious experience versus somebody else's is temporarily abated by a drug. That is the difference.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Why does the continuation of consciousness matter?
The continuation matters because the thing I'm valuing is the underlying machinery that has the capacity to deploy a conscious experience. Why? Because in all the intuition of when we talk about other people and things, it seems like, well, ultimately that's kind of where morals come from, don't they? Right? And at the end of the day, the thing that we seem to be valuing in other people seems to be the subjective experience that we're all having with each other.
Okay.
That seems to be the case.
Under your logic, Destiny.
Yes, tell me.
A newborn child whose consciousness, their memories, they won't even have memories as a newborn.
Who's talking about memories?
Because your consciousness as a newborn child and even your consciousness as a 1-year-old is very different than your consciousness as a Destiny, however old you are.
Okay.
Are you less of a person because you have less consciousness?
Yeah, you might be.
Yeah, to a degree, because you're still relying on the mother specifically to survive. So you're not like completely a person, you're a dependent. I wouldn't call a baby a person, I would call it a dependent child. But is it a person yet? Oh, it's a human, but I think when we're saying person, we're talking about people, which a baby isn't a people. A baby's a baby. It's not someone walking around in society. I think that's the difference.
Okay, interesting. That's an
But just because
interesting
you're less of a
acknowledgement.
person doesn't necessarily mean that you have like not that fundamental right to be protected as a life.
Then if you're a 1-year-old and you're a little bit less of a person than a 20-year-old, say, are your human rights less as a 1-year-old than your human rights as a 20-year-old? Where does that distinction
matter? Your human rights
matter when
are
it comes
less
to
as
rights?
a 1-year-old, yes. But in terms of like right to be killed?
Wait. Human rights are universal and inalienable. They're for everyone. We're not talking about rights when you turn 18 to vote. We're talking about your universal inalienable rights, but the idea of a human right is we all share them, and they can't be taken away from us.
Because we're human.
Okay,
Maybe
but you recognize that there's a
beginning.
fundamentally different set of like rights for children than there are for adults.
I think
now, if you want to talk about like right to not be killed, that's why I keep clarifying. That's why I keep.
Yeah, they're mixing up two different things. Rights of an adult, rights of a baby. Then there are animal rights, and then there are prison inmate rights. It all depends. Are we talking about things that are written into law, or are we talking about human rights? And human rights aren't written into law, and nobody can completely agree on what human rights are. Then it's just a matter of opinion.
That's my right to not be killed.
The amount of how much of a person you are, is what you just said, does not change your human rights, because my human rights as a 1-year-old, even though I'm less of a person because I'm less conscious than a 20-year-old, I still share the same human rights, no?
If you want to, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So why would you deprive a child in the womb weeks before developing this uncertain amount of consciousness that's still very limited compared to even the consciousness of a newborn? Why would you deprive them the right to life?
Because it's not a completely fully formed human being yet. It's still a thing. It's not an individual. They say baby as if I'm going to think it's a baby in the womb. Like, I'm not. Just like a baby isn't a fetus. Different words with different definitions. When they try to use their word to infringe on what another word's meaning is, that's just bunk.
Because they haven't become a person yet, because they haven't developed that
But
subjective
that's a circular
experience.
argument.
You're saying, let's say a person is 50% a person at 1 year old and 100% a person at 5 years old. And let's say you're saying that a second trimester baby is 20% a person. Well, what about somebody that's 0% a person? Why would you say that's not a person yet?
You're basing that off of, though, development.
Yeah, the developing of a conscious experience. Just like death is based off the development of the lack of a conscious experience.
So that's age discrimination. It's maturity discrimination.
If you want to call it age discrimination.
Oh, saying that it's age discrimination doesn't prove your point or defend your argument. These women, I can't even. Like and subscribe to our channel. Join our membership for early access to our videos. And stay sane out there, everybody.